Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. I'm your host, James Gardner, certified athletic therapist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, yoga instructor, human being. This platform, for the pros, by the pros, anybody in the performance space, and beyond. Welcome here to share in the stories of professionals, experiences, journeys, learning along the way. It's a platform to connect, to network, and to be a part of a community that cares, with conversations that matter, experiences that resonate, and generate ideas, thought-provoking, organic dialogue, passionate pros. Brought to you as always by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Epic, and Benchmark Athletics. In association with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. It's First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. Missed my window of opportunity to get this thing rolling at 7:47, but let's jump in. This is I don't even know. I think it's Sunday night. I'm really excited to be able to go out, but more so to have Alex on tonight and sitting on the porch reading books, Dragon Masters. We can talk about those later, but let's do this. Let's chat an athletic therapy roundtable. This is session 22 already. Ground rules for the evening. This is being recorded for the purposes of saving the world, one conversation at a time, and being able to go back in time and rehash some of these intelligent conversations and tidbits and pull them out and take them a little bit further as we need to. This is geared towards growing the networks, growing the profession, and creating an integrated model between athlete and practitioner, practitioner and practitioner, practitioner and athlete, and all the way around, just housing a network that I feel like we can really build through conversation and quality conversation. So without further ado, we'll get into this introduction formally, and then away we go. See a couple more people just signing in, and that throws me off. So that's the last one I'm going to let in. Let me do this. Session 22. Let's chat. Guest this evening is Alex Town. Alex started wrestling at the age of 15 in her hometown of Scarborough, Ontario. Now at the age of 24, she's a rising star on the Canadian national team with a growing list of accolades. Most notably, she is Canada's first and only wrestler to have won gold at the U23 World Championships. Her other accomplishments include gold at the 2020 Pan Am Championships, silver at the 2018 FISU World Championships, and several medals at international tournaments, including tournaments in Italy, Poland, and Peru. She placed third in the Canadian Olympic trials, meaning she was just shy of earning her spot to qualify for the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games. Alex is known for her impressive athleticism and her ability to take down and score on anybody, even well-decorated world-class opponents. She situated herself as a permanent threat, capable of coming back from any injury or setback without hesitation. Alex graduated from York University with a degree in kinesiology and health science in 2018 and is now an assistant coach to at York University with the varsity wrestling team. During her time as a varsity athlete, she was one of the most engaged student athletes at the university and was honored for her efforts with the prestigious Lions Legacy Award. She currently stands as the most decorated women's wrestler in York program history. This is an impressive bio by no stretch of the imagination just to listen to. And then if and when you get to know Alex beyond a written bio, what an impressive human. The type of person you want to be around on a daily basis if you can. If she's an athlete, then obviously we don't want her injured, but if you have to, this is the kind of athlete that you want, willing to go above and beyond in terms of rehab, in terms of understanding why and what and how she's doing along the way. We spent a lot of time together at York with a couple of rehabs, and we'll get into those definitely. But Alex, why don't you say hi to everybody, and then we'll see where this thing goes.
Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to talk to you guys today. Thank you, James, for putting this together. This is a fantastic series and discussion, and it's nice to be able to have a chat. Yeah, I look forward to talking. Let's
Awesome.
go.
Yeah. This is awesome. And so obviously you spent some time at York with you, Alex, and a couple of the ways that we got to know each other was definitely through, some injury and some rehab. But aside from that, let's get into some of the stuff that you did as a student athlete away from the mat and away from training. Because that was, for me, walking away from York University and reflecting back on some of the athletes with the highest impact in my life, and then in the clinic, like just, and talking to other professionals that were working there and performance professionals, your personality and your drive to go above and beyond in all facets of life is well, for lack of a better pun, it's flooring. And I don't know, maybe you can talk about some of the things that you do outside of wrestling, get to know you a little bit, and then we'll jump into the mat.
Yeah, I really felt like I became more of who I am during my time at York. I didn't plan on going there to get involved with everything that I got involved in or to even wrestle to begin with. But just as I started getting into wrestling, I started getting involved in so much of that athletics community. I was a peer athlete mentor for the PAWS program at York, where they pair upper year athletes with incoming student athletes, and you meet with them on a weekly basis, make sure they're doing all right, adjusting well, having no trouble with their classes. I got involved with the Lions leadership activities, where you get to know student athletes from other sports, and it's all about just strengthening that community and developing strong leaders within varsity athletics. I was the captain of my team for a couple of years, I guess. But this just all felt like just naturally things that I gravitated towards. It's not like I was seeking out these opportunities. It's just, these are the types of things that I like to get myself engaged with, and it's where I feel most comfortable because I can connect with other people and have an impact on other people. Yeah, that's just the type of things I like to do.
Yeah, and I think it was. Oh, sorry, I got a little feedback here. I'm trying to find out where that came from. Might be me, but yeah. It's obvious being around you that when you found something, you really sunk your teeth into it and really ran with it. You led by, and I didn't mean that to come off sounding like you were seeking things out. They sort of sought you out, and then your passion really drove you in everything you did. That was my perception of it. Coming in, anything away from the mat, anything away from training and these kinds of things, but also with your training. Nothing was forced. Conversation was fairly easy. You needed to, definitely in the clinic, you needed to understand your whys and your hows and these kinds of things, and that comes from your background and your interest in your degree, right, through kin and health science, which I want to get into, because I think that's an amazing thing for athletes to have as a background, a little bit deeper understanding as to why they're doing what they're doing, and through that degree and through your journey kind of help you, and definitely challenged us in terms of like a clinical staff and having student therapists in there as well. Like the questions you asked made us all go to our books or go to each other and ask each other, like, why are we doing what we're doing, and how do we push this athlete who's at the brink all the time of pushing the envelope, to get a little further, to get a little closer and get ahead in rehab. So I think the next question is Tiger King, and if you've been watching it, that just has to be answered because everybody needs that, and we need to slow down the pace here for a second. Have you watched it in your quarantine or?
Man,
no,
I think I watched three episodes.
Right.
3, maybe 4 episodes. So I've seen some of it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a yes. It's a running thing, and everyone's saying it's outdated, but me and my sense of humor never will change. So it's going to be a thing until the end of time. Anybody coming on here has to answer whether or not they're watching Tiger King. So I scanned by it last night. Actually, I scanned by it on Netflix, and I looked at the cover. So now I know what the cover of it looks like, and if I'm ready, I'll jump in there. But appreciate.
So you haven't seen it. You're just.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Yeah, no, it just seemed to be a thing. Like everybody was watching it early on when this quarantine started. I guess it's kind of fizzled out since.
At the time when it started, I was staying. I was out of the city. My family has a property that's like an hour and a half east of Toronto.
Yeah.
Just basically like a big farm property, like 20 acres or something of field. And there was no internet up there, so I just had a little bit of my mobile data. But for the entire month of May, I was like out in the middle of nowhere doing my own thing. So I was not watching Netflix. I wasn't being updated. it wasn't until I came back and like decided, okay, is this something that's worth my time to catch up on? So I watched a few episodes just to see what everyone's talking about, but I don't think I'll end up watching the rest.
All right, perfect. Very honest answer, and I think you know, an open assessment of just what it was worth for you. How about that time away? Was that refreshing for you to get away from like the internet and get out of the, you know, the hustle and bustle of everything?
Yeah, no, I love it a lot. It's like it's an old apple orchard basically that never really has anybody living there full time, so it's not maintained. So I just spent that an entire month like rehabilitating the fields with my siblings and having a great time, just being out in the sunshine all day, like climbing apple trees and pruning and cutting grass. And to me, that sounds like a lot of fun to me. So I had a great time. Yeah.
I was just kind of looking through the room, and I don't know, I'm getting feedback from myself, I think. Anyway, I was just kind of looking through the room, and I was like, everyone was kind of like, yeah, that's awesome. We've kind of gone, yeah. We've all kind of come back to doing the things that are like, you know, they may not show up well on Instagram or like trying to gain followers, but they're definitely like to the core, pardon the pun, but they are, they're very much like enriching, you know? Yeah, apple core. Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah. But that time away, were you able to train, and did you sort of, what kind of training were you doing while climbing trees?
So I have my own weightlifting equipment. I have a bar and some weights. It adds up to about 130 pounds. So actually what I did within my first few weeks of being up there, I built myself a squat rack out of some 2x4s and some nails. So I had the whole deck and the squat rack and my weights, and I was like having a great time doing my strength training in the sunshine and the wind, whatever the weather is, with my little windbreaker. So that for the first few weeks I was doing that, and then I managed to link up with my wrestling coach who drove his truck out there and brought us 2 strips of a wrestling mat, which I put in the basement bedroom. So I just like set the mat up in that little bedroom in the basement. And so for a couple days I was training there, but I actually was like pushed around my brother and my sister and my dad one day. And my little 3-year-old niece, she's always like, yeah, let's go wrestle down in the basement. But I don't actually really have a wrestling training partner with me. So I can do like individual, you know, solo and shadow wrestling, but it's not the same, and it kind of loses the excitement very quickly. So I do have a setup to hit the mats. I just don't have anybody I can really train with.
Right. What an impressive expression of creativity, though. Just building a squat rack out of 2x4s, you know, no big deal. And then just shrugging it off like it's no big deal. Yeah, so I just built a 2x4, you know, squat rack and just started doing that so I could keep training. I think this is it. Like in the first, I don't know how long we've been on here, but resourceful, passionate, driven, intelligent, all the things that you are really shine just in speaking with you briefly, you know, and getting away from the city, getting away from your norms, and still being able to find a way to dedicate yourself to your sport is pretty impressive. Beyond that, has it started to weigh on you not being on? I mean, once you get pinned by a 3-year-old, it is a little bit embarrassing, and then you got to figure out some new tactics. But starting to weigh on you a little bit, not being able to wrestle.
So what's really weighing on me is I follow a lot of international wrestlers because I meet them at training camps, I meet them at competitions, we get to know each other, we follow each other on Instagram. And so I'm starting to see every country has different regulations, different restrictions.
Right.
But I'm starting to see other countries and how they're returning to their training. And so that's what's getting me a little anxious is in Canada, we're being really strict. You know, we're slowly going through the different phases, but I see some other countries where they're already back on the mats, and maybe they've got their own little isolated group. I don't know the details, but I see it, and it's hard not to compare. So I'm definitely starting to get anxious and trying to think like, okay, what can I do? Who can I connect with, and how can I get back to training because everybody else is doing it?
Right.
So it's tough. Yeah.
I wonder if there's like, not to make light of it, but I wonder if they have like something like those sumo suits that people dress up in and do those wrestling things. Like you could wrestle in those and then just strip them off and then like wash them and then get another one where there's no contact. You know, you have a barrier in between while you're doing this. Yeah. Wrestling's a big contact sport.
I'll recommend it to the Wrestling Canada Health Professionals.
Yeah. I don't know. I think
sumo suits.
Yeah, we need some sumo suits that are like, I don't know,
The
neoprene
issue
and
is that we're breathing heavily all over each other. Even if we're wearing masks, that's not going to stop you.
yeah,
There's
there's
so
close
much.
quarters. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are close quarters for sure. Then it comes to sort of the screening and all those kinds of things, and the implementation of, you know, the NHL is obviously major money and major sponsorship in that. And they're, I think, I haven't confirmed this, and I should before I open my mouth, but they are testing athletes, I think, on a nightly basis when they return to play. And that's just a
Wow.
thing that's not
Yeah.
available, right? In with Wrestling Canada, that's probably not a thing where the money and support isn't quite there. But hey, we've turned the corner. Things are starting to open back up. We're not going to go down that path too far. But I think all the things that you're doing away from the mat and to get back to the mat when it's time, I'm sure you'll be ready. You've been ready from the get-go, and have faced a lot of adversity. And this is not even, I don't know, this isn't even scratching the surface of adversity in terms of what you faced to this point.
That's true. Yeah. However long it ends up before we can resume our full contact training, I patiently await it, but I'll be fine. I'm not letting myself go to waste. I'm jumping right back into it with great anticipation. That's for sure.
Yeah, and so just coming back around to some of the guests that we've had on, like Dr. Zarnett was on here a couple weeks ago. Dr. Desai was on here a couple weeks before him.
For those listening, that's the surgeon who did my left knee, and then the surgeon who did my right foot.
Yeah, so Dr. Desai, we had a little conversation on here about you and your foot, just because he did another case study on a football athlete, but then we started talking about, you know, some of the ins and outs of the surgery and the rehab and the protocols and these kinds of things. And so this is where Alex and I spent a lot of time together, just to give everybody else who's not familiar with it some context. I think the majority of your rehab was spent with myself for your ACL, at least at the start, and then as you got back into training, and then partway after the foot. But let's start with the ACL. It's part of life to have people walk by. That's fine. That's not a thing. That's not a formal thing. My son jumped on here last time. Our son came up and jumped in the screen last time, and I was like, oh, no, I can't put it on the internet. I can't put a kid on the internet. It's not a thing.
Do you remember that video that went viral? It must have been a year ago, of the reporter. No, so there was somebody who was doing a meeting from his home office, and then one of his kids just like waddled into the background, and his wife like ran in and
grabbed and yanked. Yeah. I think that's just an everyday thing now. You know, that's just kind of part and parcel. And yeah, and I've actually seen one where a guy was he intentionally put on like different outfits and was always in the background of his wife's meetings. I think she was a teacher. Somebody had like a Superman on one day, and then he had like a mask on and like some other stuff. And he was always you got to look these up. I don't know. It's just a thing. But it's kind of part of the world right now. But anyway, let's get back to this discussion about injury and recovery and sort of like your resilience. And I might be overstepping, but I think your background in kinesiology and like your desire to learn and understand this stuff as you were going through, and then you got hurt, it was kind of like a perfect storm, because you knew all the questions to ask. You knew what was going on with your body from being an athlete, but then you also have the academic side, and then you had our clinical staff and the training staff that was helping from a performance side. So lots of good questions, and you could kind of challenge us, and we could challenge ourselves. The ACL was the first major injury, right? And so I also think didn't you win the U Sport silver medal? Like it was, I think, 11 months after surgery.
Yeah, that same season. So that was quite a year. That was probably like my greatest storyline I had, because I had that surgery January 2017 for my ACL. I was so focused, like so committed to having the best possible recovery that a human could have, given the resources I had. I wanted to know like what were my limitations, what can I push, what should I not push, like what can I do to absolutely maximize the outcome. I even remember before I had the surgery, there was like maybe like a 2-month period before I was scheduled to have the surgery, and I was strength training to get as strong as possible so that I could hit the ground running and have that muscle mass like ready to go for after the surgery. So that January I had my surgery. I treated the recovery like full-time job, basically, like being in the clinic like 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, something like that. And so I eventually, let's see, that September of that year is when I was cleared for return to play. And actually, I was fitted for a brace, for a knee brace. And it was something that was recommended by the surgeon that I wear a brace for like up to 2 years after, something like that.
Right.
But I don't know, for some reason I never wanted it, because I didn't want to have any type of dependence, even if it's just a mental crutch. So when I got cleared to go back to wrestling, I never put on a brace ever. I just was wearing a little knee pad. But it's because I wanted to be able to feel my knee and feel the strength that it had on its own without anything assisting it. And I never had any problems. You know, it was really strong, and we did a lot of work in the rehab. So yeah, that was September, and then hopped into my varsity season, which ended in late February / early March, was the U Sports Championships. Yeah, that I came second there at the U Sports Championships.
Right.
But then a month later was national championships, and that was in March. So yeah, like 13, 14 months later after the surgery, and I won that championship. So that was my big, like, the pinnacle of the recovery.
Yeah, that was I don't know if this feedback is bad for everybody else, but if it is, just let me know and I'll try to cure it. That was like the pinnacle of a rehab, you know. It was like, and now we all have to live up to Alex's standard of getting back with all these ACLs, all these different sports, all these kinds of things. You know, we have to try and get everybody back at that, and then we had to, you know, pare that back and say, okay, this is a special athlete who does everything, goes above and beyond, you know, is stronger than majority of any other athlete, pound for pound, inch for inch, in the university, and then the dedication and the understanding and the willingness to go sort of, you know, to continue to push. So that rehab, we had Dr. Zarnett on, and he was very much he talked about, you know, his use of braces and why he uses braces, and the sport sometimes doesn't allow it, or, you know, you and I talked about this, and our strength people, as well as our other therapists in the clinic, about, you know, if you can't, you know, we don't want to create a dependence, but if the surgeon recommends it, we can have that discussion. And in the gym, very much like, you never trained with a brace on. So then we go to the mat, and like, why would we put a brace on? So there was a lot of discussion and dialogue there for anybody who's a therapist and whatever. Having that open channel to the surgeon went a long way too. And with your athlete, you know, if she doesn't want to wear it, okay, it's her body ultimately, right? So, and her sport. So these are things that we've touched on. So it's cool that you brought those up as well. And definitely, like, the win after the surgery, pretty amazing that you turned it around that quickly. Your injury was a non-wrestling injury, right? It was just kind of messing around, wasn't it?
Yes, I was playing a game of intramural flag football.
Okay, not messing around. It was pretty competitive.
It was competitive. It was the Tier 1 championship final game.
Yeah.
Which we ended up winning, and I got a T-shirt.
Awesome. Well worth it. A T-shirt and a cool scar out of it.
Yeah, and a comeback story, I guess.
Yeah, and an amazing comeback story at that. So what do you recall, or if you do recall, sort of summarizing your rehab from that? What were the steps that were sort of outlined for you, or that stand out for you in retrospect, looking back at it? You know, I had to get to this point, I had to do this, and then I had to do this, sort of the order of things, and what your thought process was going in and then as you went through.
Yeah, well, one of the first things I remember, like, being very, very conscious of is right after the surgery, is being able to, like, reconnect that, like, that mind to muscle connection. Like, I wanted to be able to flex each individual muscle in my quad and make sure that it activated properly, because that connection kind of weakens a little bit, you know, with the swelling and the surgery. So I remember the first two weeks, I was super, super focused on just being able to contract that muscle and feel it and know that it's responding and make sure it's, like, awake. So I think that entire first phase of recovery was just strengthening that connection and really making sure I'm activating it when I'm doing all of my exercises.
Yeah. And you're working. I don't know, this is your work pre-surgery also contributed to that. So for clinicians out there, and we wonder sometimes like, well, why are you going to put in all this work before surgery? When you get somebody who puts in high quality work before surgery and is also a special athlete, you know, to begin with, there are contributing factors that are innate to the athlete, and they're individual and independent. So this isn't a blanket statement, but for you, definitely the work ahead of time, and then your ability to come in after surgery, you could sort of tap back into those neural networks a little easier. Is that a fair statement? Would you agree or disagree on that?
Yeah, no, I would agree that. I do remember this may have been the day after, a day or two after the surgery. Tracy was there, and she wanted to test like my straight leg VMO activation, because that's like the first thing that you lose when you have knee injuries or surgeries. And so she had me do a straight leg raise, and I did it no problem. And she's like, "What the hell? You shouldn't be able to do that right now." So yeah, definitely put a lot of work in ahead of time, but for sure there's some natural ability that it's yeah, I did a lot of work, but also some things just are well connected, but very important for my recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the time after we got sort of through the range stuff and got you reconnected, or you got yourself reconnected, we moved obviously probably into range of motion and then some strengthening stuff. Were there a lot of hurdles for you along the way in your rehab in terms of like mental blockages or physical blockages, or things like, why can't we do this faster, or why are we doing this? I remember vividly a bunch of conversations, especially when we got to the biodex and when we were talking about, you know, mechanics of recovery and force plates, which we didn't have access to, and these kinds of things. But what were some of the stumbling blocks for you mentally and physically in that rehab, if there were any?
I don't think there were too many. I'd say one thing. So the first like 4 weeks, 4 or 5, 6 weeks, I was like really shooting through that really quickly. I think naturally I don't swell a lot. I don't have a really large inflammation response. So it was really easy for me to work through those first few weeks. And it felt like I was ready to get right into the gym right away. But there were like, you know, there were strict guidelines we were supposed to follow. So I remember we did have that conversation, like, is there anything else that we can do here in the clinic? Am I still getting benefit? Like, am I allowed to go that step further? So I was a little anxious to get going. So when we finally made the decision for me to head down to the strength and conditioning center and just do things in the gym as opposed to working in the clinic, I remember in that first week I was doing a kneeling exercise, and I felt like the pull. It was a little bit painful, but I didn't think there was anything wrong with the pain, so I pushed through it, and then I felt a type of snap. I don't know if it was like a tendon rolling or something, but it was super, super painful. And then I was back to limping for a few days after that. So I remember that was my first time, you know, I was like climbing, and then maybe I was going a little too fast, and it brought me back down. So I was really bummed out for that whole week, the whole time, limping again. This is so frustrating. I was making so much progress. So maybe there were a couple times like that where I was making progress, and then something happens and my limp is worse than it was a week ago. But the overall trend was like a positive progression. And so I knew that it wasn't like I was back to square one. You know, I was still progressing, I was still stronger. It's just, I need to be patient, because some things, it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah.
So I would say that, that my main obstacle was just not being able to consistently, you know, have a right. But that's not the way it works.
Yeah. Not being able to be the only person on the planet that can have a linear progression the entire time in a rehab, right? But you are Superwoman, so like there is a thing like that should be a thing that you can do. If anybody could, it would be you. Dr. Zarnett mentioned it. You know, there are certain things along the way that we just can't change, and part of that is time. It's physiological recovery that we don't want to rush. We need the graft to mature before we can do certain things in the gym. But a lot of the things we did in the gym, I think you and nope, it was you, really overhauled the ACL protocol for all of us, I think, at York, and made it a little bit more individualized in terms of, okay, we don't just put these timelines on here for athletes to do at the 3-month mark because it's the 3-month mark. It's got to come back around to where this athlete is at. And you were one of the first to get down into the gym, start doing some things that were warranted due to your quick recovery, and still within the physiological time frame and the graft maturation along the way. So this was one that I think, and I saw Britt nodded because she was in the clinic quite a bit during that time as well. It kind of overhauled the way that we were looking at things, and Adam had a huge role in what the ACL protocol looked like from a strength and conditioning standpoint. And when that overlay started, let's get out of the clinic and move into this dual sort of clinic and gym, and then come back around to when we need to get returned. Your sport is a little bit different than some, right? Because you spend a lot of time doing things that are not necessarily
predictable.
Yeah, predictable is a great word. And then like field-based, like football, where you're always on your feet and doing things, and you don't have somebody necessarily trying to twist your knee in certain ways to get you to say uncle or something. So tell us a little bit about your sport, and was there any difficulty once you got back to the mat? Were you hesitant with that when you got through all the strengthening to sort of get into some of those positions?
Yeah, wrestling, it's a contact sport. So you do have to have like full confidence in what you can do with your leg, and the way that it can be manipulated by someone else. So I think actually the first obstacle that was wrestling specific was the fact that we spend most of our time like shooting on our knees, like you start standing up, but anytime you go for attack, you go down on your knee. And I had that scar sensitivity, which I still don't kneel on hard surfaces because it's a sensitive area. And so I had a padded knee pad, but I had to get over that hesitation, because anytime I went for a shot and I had the impact of my knee and the scar on the mats, it was like a little bit of a nerve shock. Mm-hmm. So I had to like desensitize that. But also, since there's so much like forces on the knees, I always had a little bit of swelling, so I couldn't really bring my heel to my butt all the time. And I didn't have that full range of motion, which could be dangerous, because if you don't have that full mobility, then for some reason it does get like really quickly pushed to that position, it's painful. So I'd say that whole like September, October, November, that whole period of time whenever I was getting back onto the mats, I would have a good practice, and then I would have a practice where something tweaked it and I had a sharp pain, but I knew that it was just maybe swelling that was making it extra sensitive that day, and that I had to just give it a lot of TLC. And yeah, I'd say I didn't really have any problems with my opponent, like manipulating my leg in a way that was painful. It was just always me like putting myself into a position where the range was a little bit too painful.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would like fully extend my leg too quickly, and that day it happened to be a little bit swollen because I did a lot the day before, or maybe it was a rainy day and my knee was kind of buggy. So a lot of times, I was fully extended and I would like wince in pain, or if it was fully flexed all the way. And I had a lot of those moments, but it was really easy for me to be able to tell myself, okay, I didn't actually do any damage. It's just sensitive right now. Maybe I need to give it a little bit more care, and maybe I need to ice it a little bit more to help get rid of the swelling. So I would say that was the main trouble I had as a wrestler.
Yeah, and so for some of the practitioners and some of the people that are working with, sports that they're not quite familiar with, it goes a long way to understand what your athlete needs to do beyond just getting them out of the clinic and into the gym. And I think this is where some of the hiccups and some of the delays in recovery happen, is where there's a bit of a disconnect between the clinic, the gym, and then the gym and the sport. And so kind of relying on your athlete for understanding positional load, positions that are required for the sport, and all these kinds of things. That the one thing for me going through that rehab was, we can make you as bulletproof as possible away from an opponent. But I was always, and I never told you this, I don't think, but now that you're recovered and a world champion, I can tell you, I was always a little bit nervous about somebody else grabbing your leg and doing something to that graft, because ultimately we have to pay attention to the physiological timeline of what that graft takes to mature. And nobody can go in there and say, oh, without cutting you open and going in there and being like, oh, look, it's mature, we're good. We just kind of rely on a standard timeline for that. And Rick was on, Dr. Zarnett was on, he said, it's typically 9 to 12 months and 12 months and beyond. And I've read some studies since, that show every month after 9, I think 9 is worth a huge downturn in terms of re-tear, opportunity for re-tear. So 9 to 12 is definitely like sort of the sweet spot, but beyond 12, you're looking at a pretty mature graft. And you started back wrestling far before 12, but at the same time, pretty respectfully to that graft, right?
Yeah, actually, my first competition back was late October.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't show any worry because of who you are, and because we were pretty bulletproof with that rehab. In all honesty, like we were all very confident in that, or else you wouldn't have been back on the mat in your best interest. But you were also leading the charge in terms of being the athlete directing things when we got to that point. Your level of comfort and your understanding of what you needed to do, right?
I remember after my first tournament back, which was, I don't know, I guess it was like 10 months after the surgery, or just shot like 9.5 months. I came to the clinic and I showed you a video of a match that I had. So I showed you two things. One was the fact that I went in for a leg attack and I shot on my bad knee without any hesitation at all. I didn't even think about it. I didn't feel it. And it was fully flexed, like knee right to butt. No problem at all. So I showed you that and I was like, look at this, look at that flexion. And then I picked up the girl and like slammed her down on the mat. And I actually knocked her out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then at that point, we were no longer worried about your
My opponent.
We were just, we were worried about how badly you were going to hurt everybody else, which was great. You went on to do some really good things, obviously, and continue to.
I was very strong at that point.
Yeah, and you look great right now. You look like I feel like you've just continued to train, continue to get stronger, and continue to develop in the sport. That was a long time in that clinic and the gym for you. For us, we very much just try to bulletproof things and revise things based on where you were at and individualize it to get you what you needed. And if anybody's ever worked with an athlete who, like, if there's anybody to get injured, and I don't wish this upon you, again, like just a superstar when it came to the clinic and understanding her body, her sport, and what she needed to get through. So this is a special case as well when it comes to surgical rehab, when it comes to recovery in sport. A high level athlete with competencies beyond, most athletes' comprehension, if not, all at the university at the time, at least. And so that really drove a lot of things, and that drove us to sort of change what we were doing, why we were doing it, and when we were going to do it with you to help you get back to where you wanted to be as quickly as possible, but still as safely as possible, obviously. How about just switching gears just for a second, because the next injury is also an interesting one that we had talked about with Dr. Desai, and you came down, and there are some cool things about that as well. But in your downtime, have you picked up anything new? I know you play the ukulele, so there's a lot of guitar and ukulele, so there's a lot of singing and all these things. Have you picked up any new habits or cool things that you're doing in your downtime?
Anything new? Well, since the pandemic, I've been playing a little bit more piano. I played piano when I was younger. I took lessons for years, but then when I moved out for university, I didn't take a piano with me, so I hadn't been playing. But over the month of May, I learned how to play Moonlight Sonata.
Okay.
So, yeah, but nothing new that I picked up. No new hobbies. I have enough hobbies. I play music and sing with my family, and
that's amazing things. And go into the making of 2x4 2x4 squat racks and climbing trees and fixing.
I did get a little bit into baking, but natural, like whole foods baking. So I make brownies that are black beans and dates. Make my own hummus.
Yeah. What was that juice you were on at York? You remember with the things, the purple?
Sumac. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I harvest the pods from the sumac tree, and then I soak them and make like a tea out of it. And it's just this it has a little bit of like a lemony taste to it. It's like a pinkish color, and it is anti-inflammatory, high in vitamin C. So
there you go.
yeah.
You get all the practitioners on here writing this down, and they're now using this in ACL recoveries worldwide based on your anecdote here, which is, hey, maybe worthwhile. So really cool. And you always were kind of like this cool person, and still are, you know, that did all these cool things, played the thing, did all the thing, dedicated yourself to everything that you tied yourself to. I just popped a quiz up for everybody there on the right hand side for anybody collecting CEUs. It's there. You can click on it. Alex, you don't need to do that one unless you really want to. But the next injury was one a couple days after winning. So let's not get into the injury yet. Let's go through the World Championship, where you were, the matches that you had to win. It was a pretty impressive showing.
This was an exciting one. Yeah. So this was actually, so before we get to the big World Championship that I won, so that was November of 2018. I had 3 World Championships in 3 months that fall. Because September, I had the University World Championships, and that was like my first ever World Championship, super exciting. And then I in October, I went to the Senior World Championships, which is like the open oldest age group. And then the month after, in November, was the Under-23 World Championships, which I was still eligible for. So to begin with, Wrestling Canada was telling me, I told them I wanted to go to all of them because I was the number one. I was eligible for all 3. So it's like, yeah, I want to do 3 World Championships in 3 months. And they're all in different countries. Like one's in Brazil, one's in Hungary, Budapest, and the other's in Romania. And so I got to go all the way there, come all the way back. It's like, it's very taxing, very draining. So they're like, that might be too much. I don't think it's a good idea. Maybe pick 2 of the 3. And I was like, no, I want to go. This is my first year of international tournaments. I want to do everything that I can. So September I had World Universities. I came second there. That was really exciting. It was in Brazil. Came back home, and then I went to Budapest for the Senior World Championships, and that is like as big as it gets. It's like Senior World Championships is kind of bigger than the Olympics, like the pool of people you're wrestling against. So I think I placed 12th, which was pretty good for my first time ever being there. They were all really impressed. I had some good matches. And then it wasn't even a full month. It was 3 weeks later, I was back in Europe, in Romania, Bucharest, Romania, for the Under-23 World Championships. To be honest, I don't even, so coming from the Senior Worlds to U23 Worlds, I guess I had a little bit of confidence going in because I was like, I just finished facing the best of the best, and this is an age group down from that. So I felt pretty comfortable, pretty confident, and I had done so much prep leading up to it. Like, I didn't have to do any work in those weeks leading up to it because I spent the whole season training for this. So, I was very relaxed. My first 2 matches on day 1, it was like first round, 10-0 win. It's pretty good. And then
not bad, pretty good.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't even think I was 100%. I wasn't fully rested for this because I had just competed like maximally a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. But I did as much as I could in terms of recovery and therapy and massage to get feeling fresh again. So my third match of the day, which was in the evening, it's the semifinals, is a woman from Mongolia. And I don't like to research my opponents too much. Well, things start to change now that I'm more familiar with people, but this was when I was still really fresh to the international scene. So I didn't want to research my opponent too much, but I went in there like really confident, and I went in there no hesitation at all. She scored a few points on me. It was a good match, but at the end of the day, I was the one pushing the pressure, and I just like bulldozed her, and I beat her 15-3, something like that. And then when I finished, my coach called me because he was still all the way back here in Canada, and he's like, Alex, did you know that you just beat a world champion? I was like, I misheard him. I thought he said, you're going to be a world champion. And I was like, yeah, tomorrow I'm wrestling for gold. That's really cool. He's like, no, Alex, you just beat a world champion. She won the 2015 World Championship.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, I had no idea. so I was just like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Fun fact, she actually bit me as I was in the last few seconds as I was pinning her. She like bit my arm, and I had bite marks left over.
Nobody caught that, or what?
I told the ref, but he didn't. I don't know, man. I don't think he wanted me to win, to be honest.
Right. I didn't do this to myself.
It hurt.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yes.
And that was that was a championship or the semifinal?
So that was semifinals.
Yeah.
And then next day in the evening, I had my gold medal match against a Japanese wrestler. And Japan is known to be the powerhouse of women's wrestling. Like, they're so dominant. They have been for years. Mm-hmm. So for anybody to go up against a Japanese, it's a really big deal. But I was very calm, cool, collected. And that's how I went in right up until, I'd say right from beginning to end. Well, not the entire time, but my approach to the match, I was very calm, cool. You know, when the match started, I was still very focused. I don't even know how to describe what my match was like, but
can you like, I don't know, when in certain sports and athletes, they say like they got into this state where they were just not even thinking, they were just kind of doing it. Would you say like that's a thing that happens to you in wrestling, and maybe in that match where you got in like this flow state or like this zone of competition where it was,
So this one, okay, I would say the day before when I faced the Mongolian, I was in flow in that match. Like, I was hitting a move like off a reflex that I didn't even think about. I didn't even know what I did until I watched it in replay. Mm-hmm. And then when I had my gold medal match, it was a little different because it was more pressure, but I wasn't thinking about all of that in the match. So I was in the zone. I was definitely in the zone for at least the first half of my first round. Yeah. And I was up like 6 points. I was doing great. And I could hear my opponent like getting nervous, and her breath is racing more. And I was like, yeah, all right, this is good. But then I think I started thinking about the implications of the match, and I was like, wow, this is the gold medal. I'm beating this girl right now. Oh my gosh, that means I'm gonna win. And I made a mistake, and she managed to take me down, and she almost pinned me. Like, she almost fully had me pinned on my back. So I was like being held in this position where I'm almost on my back, and everybody's like freaking out. But in that moment when I was about to be pinned, I was like as calm and focused as I've ever been. I remember clearly, I was like, okay, relax. She doesn't have you pinned yet. I'm breathing deeply, making sure that I can get oxygen to my muscles. And then I remember I looked up at the screen where you can see like the live video feed of our match, and I could see in the screen, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm not pinned yet. I got this. I'm strong.
Amazing in that moment that you can just be
yeah, I remember that.
Up there and see what's going on.
Yeah, like that's how calm I was, that I was able to like look to an external cue. And it's weird, like usually you're like, sometimes you're laser focused, sometimes I find when my mind is clearer, I'm able to hear more around me. Like I can hear my coach more clearly. I can hear what the referee is saying. But when you're like too nervous, then you only see your opponent, and it's not what you want sometimes. Everybody's different, but if you're too focused in, then it's too much tunnel vision. So I was able to pick things out that will help me. So deep breath, and I managed to like slowly maneuver myself out of the position and reverse and end up on top. And then I was like, okay, now I need to get it back together. I need to remember that I can't lose my focus. I had to be smart here. So for the rest of the match, I think I scored one more takedown that just finalized it, and she wasn't able to score anything else on me. So when the match was done, my reaction was, I don't know, people, when you win a world championship, a lot of people will jump up and like screaming and yelling and celebrating, but I didn't feel that, because it felt like something that I put so much work into that it only made sense. Like, it felt like it was the outcome that was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So I felt like a sense of relief. I was like, okay, good. This is what was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
All right, I did it. And I was like very, very calm, very calm. Like I don't even think I was really smiling. It was just kind of like I was washed with a wave of relief, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, in that moment, it sounds like you were in some sort of zone. What it was, I wouldn't be able to identify that. But you, as the athlete, the fact that you can look up and see what's going on as it's actually going on the TV screen, and then at the end, you're like, yeah, I had this all along. I cannot even parallel that with my personal life, but it sounds like you were right locked in and in a different kind of way, maybe for that, just so well prepared that you didn't have to think, maybe.
Yeah, it's really easy to think, when you make a big mistake like that and you end up on your back, it's easy to think, oh my gosh, I'm about to lose this match. But that's not what I thought. It was like, oh, okay, I'm about to get out of this position because this is not good.
Yeah.
And then I'll finish the match after that. So
yeah.
It definitely was. I did a lot of mental prep, of course, but.
Yeah, very, very, very cool story. And to let us into that moment, like that is, I don't know if that's like the ultimate to hear from an athlete in a championship moment, to hear and the fact that you can recall it so vividly, like what a cool thing that you're going to have forever and ever and ever, which is amazing. Plus the video on the big screen. So maybe we can get the still shot of, like, we'll figure out, I don't know, the still shot of the big screen and you being almost pinned, but knowing you're not going to be pinned and looking up.
I think I posted it on Instagram, a video of me like getting pinned, and I kind of outlined, I guess I should send you the link. So
yeah, send it to me.
But I kind of outlined my thought process in that moment and kind of broke it down for people.
Yeah, very cool. You can send me that anytime. I'd love to see that, and I'm sure maybe other people would as well. What a cool little transition through, like, taking I don't know, one of our common themes on these chats has been like sort of taking opportunity out of the current situation, so instead of looking at it as like I'm almost in a defeat, you're at the opposite end of the spectrum saying, I can turn this into something, watch how I'm going to get out of this, right? So mindset, and very cool. The only thing I can parallel that with in the AT world for myself was the AT exam. And for those of you that haven't written it yet, or are about to write it, you get nervous going into that. And the way that it used to be structured is you walk into a room and you're doing it in front of a panel of people that are sitting there with, pens and papers evaluating what you're doing. And I got really nervous to the point, like, I walked out after just being like, all right, I'm going to the bar because I failed that and I'm going to have to go do this again. And, but just blinders completely in terms of like how you identified when you get nervous. You just kind of get your blinders on and you don't see what's going on and you don't really find alternative solutions, which was really, really cool. Yeah, you sent me that and I will get this up. I'll use Alex just sent me the Instagram post, and if you don't follow her, is it through the Town Takedowns? Yeah, at Town Takedowns is her handle on all of the social media sites. I'll type that in here as we go, and then I'll post this on Alex, if you don't mind. I'll post it in when I archive this to the YouTube channel. I'll just put it in the comments section like I do. I usually put some resources in there, so I'll just throw this thing up there for everybody to watch. But some really cool videos, and I kind of took a bunch of your photos from Instagram to sort of advertise this session, and it just looks like what a powerful athlete, just driving other human beings to the mat, and winning a world championship at 23, right at the time, under 23, and coming back from a major injury, and then it sort of took a turn after that. Not to minimize the fact that you're a world champion, nobody will ever take that away from you. Did the bite mark heal? First of all,
it didn't break the skin.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So then you have that gold medal, and nobody will ever take that away from you. And then a couple days later, you fall upon some just calamity.
It was not a couple days later, James. It was the same night.
Same night. All right. Same night. Go for it. Take us through this one.
Yeah. So the night. Okay. All right. So it's a 2-day competition. First day is all of the preliminaries, and then the semifinals. A long day, and then day 2 you have to wake up early, go to weigh-ins again, right? And then you have the day to relax, rest, and then you wrestle in the evening. So my match was pretty late at night. It must have been like 8:30 p.m. of day 2. Like, I was tired at this point, so I had my match, and then as soon as my match finishes, I get pulled into doping control. So they waited till after the medal ceremony, but you got to get P tested. That's just what you do. And that was my first time ever doing it, and I was physically exhausted. I was emotionally exhausted. I almost cried at one point because the first sample was no good. Oh my gosh. So anyways, it's just very draining. It's very draining. And it took like an hour. So I didn't end up getting back to the hotel where all my teammates were having dinner until like 10 o'clock, I think. So I'm exhausted. And, you know, we sit down there and they all like clapped as I entered. Yeah. And then we had dinner. And we're celebrating, you know, like within the hotel. We didn't leave. We didn't go anywhere crazy, but we celebrated a big world championship win. Had a great time. And get this, our flight back home was at like 6 a.m. in the morning. So we had to leave the hotel at like 3 in the morning. There's no time to sleep. So, you know, I like go have dinner, celebrate a little, go run upstairs, pack my bags, and then go hop on the bus to the airport. Like that's what the timeline was like. I was exhausted. Okay. I'm saying all this to try and defend myself. So it's one of those coach buses. Okay. So I hop on the bus, you know, walk up the stairs. And I see a girl at the back of the bus who also won that day. She won in a weight class above me. So I was going to go congratulate her. So I started walking to the back of the bus. And then these buses have, you know, it's a bus, you walk up the stairs, but it also has an entrance in the middle. So you can walk upstairs here as well. So I walk in the front and walking along the bus. And then I didn't see the second entrance and I slipped down those stairs in the middle. I slipped like 2 or 3 steps and I caught myself with my foot like this. I caught myself here and just right immediately. It was like rolling my ankle, but my ankle didn't roll. It rolled in the arch of my foot, just like really fast, really painful. And I was like, oh, ouch. And I sat down and like started massaging my foot. I was like, that hurt a lot. That didn't feel good. I didn't end up going to congratulate the girl because this hurt a lot and I had to sit down. So the whole bus ride, I was just like massaging my foot, like, I hope it's nothing serious. Like it's not my ankle, just tweaked my foot a little bit. But as the day progressed, when we were walking through the airport, it was just getting more painful. Once we got on the airplane, it was like a 12-hour flight maybe from Europe back to Canada. When I got on the airplane, okay, no, it wasn't 12 hours. It was like 8 hours. I forget. It felt like 12. My foot ballooned up so badly. Okay, got off the airplane. This was like the longest day of my life, basically. Got off the airplane, and that day, it's a Saturday. It's the day of the York Open tournament that we host every year.
Right.
At York University. So my coach picked me up from the airport and drove me directly there. And they had like a big ceremony for me where they paused all the competition and they brought out a big flag and flowers for me and had me walk around. So they gave me crutches when I got there because I was like limping at that point. It was very painful. But then I was like, everybody was there. So I, you know, put the crutches down. I'm like walking around saying hello and saying thank you to everybody. And then that night, this has been like a 32-hour day for me so far.
But you still had that gold medal. You had that gold medal the whole time.
Yeah. But that night, my foot was like throbbing so badly. So my parents took me to the clinic to get an X-ray. They got an X-ray, and I'm very thankful for each one of the doctors through the different stages. But first, you know, like the first emergency doctor who did the X-ray was able to pick up something in the X-ray, and he's like, you know what? I think it looks like there might be something here. This looks like this could be a Liz Franks injury, so we're gonna have you come in again and have a specialist look at it. And I've heard that it's an injury that's very easy to miss because it's a subtle, just a little gap between the second metatarsal and the medial cuneiform. That was what it was for me. So yeah, the first doctor who looked at the X-ray saw something, referred me to come back in the next morning, get more imaging done. Then the next doctor agreed, yeah, I think that we're gonna have to have a specialist look at this and see whether or not you need surgery. And so 3 days after I got back, I was in the surgery room getting surgery on my foot.
Right.
So it was Dr. Desai who did that for me. So like the same week that I got back from winning my world championships, I was under the table, and then I woke up with a big cast on my foot. Couldn't walk. I had to use crutches, and then Britt let me use her like peg leg crutch, so I could walk around. yeah, so that was my, like, I didn't really get to go celebrate and do all this and that because I was in a cast, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it was not fun.
This is the highs and lows. This is the non-linear component of being an athlete. Like
Oh
what
my gosh.
an amazing transition. Obviously the win, you know, keeping the gold medal and just kind of looking at that thing as you went through the rehab process. And then we connected during that point, at that point, I think after your surgery, you had things lined up. You're in the boot, you're non-weight bearing. It wasn't great weather, I don't think, in Canada and in Toronto at the time, right? When you were in your
No.
boot and stuff like
Yeah, it wasn't good weather. You know, it was snowy, it was rainy, whatever. And I can't walk around and go places. It's not safe if you can't walk with both feet. And so I was supposed to be 2 months completely non-weight bearing. And then the third month I was allowed to walk in the boot. I think Dr. Desai purposely didn't really tell me what the timeline was like because he knew that I would go crazy. So he kind of just told me like a little bit at a time. And if he told me right from the beginning, you're not going to be able to walk for 3 months, I think I would have gone crazy.
Yeah.
But he just kind of told me like a little bit at a time, like, okay, we're going to have a follow-up meeting here, you know. So I think maybe that was best. But yeah, so you reached out to me, and I ended up coming to the Bahamas to work with you in January. When I was weight bearing but still wearing the boot. And I wasn't allowed to walk without the boot, but we did so much work working on like those intrinsic muscles in the foot and strengthening that arch. And that was invaluable. Like the amount of work that we did within that week of me being there, I was scheduled to have a follow-up and like be able to take my boot off maybe a week after. And like, the very day I was allowed to take it off, it was off and I was walking no problem because we had done so much work strengthening my foot to prepare. So I hit the ground running basically.
yeah, it was probably the greatest office and the greatest clinic that anybody's ever been in. So just to give everybody some context, Alex flew down on her own dime and stayed at a nice little hostel just down the road from us. And we just got her on the beach and got her out of the boot and got her doing a bunch of stuff, seated in the sand, standing in the sand. She got bitten by a shark and survived. She beat the shark. I still tell everybody that you got bitten by a shark. In my books, that's a shark, and you're Alex, so you obviously beat the shark. But a great
like
rehab.
This big,
yeah, well, we don't have to ruin the whole. I mean, it's a fish tip. It gets bigger every time. So 10 years from now, that's going to be like it's not going to fit on the screen. Yeah, big shark, baby shark.
Good chunk of
yeah, but no, you got out of the boot, and I think like the vitamin D and like just the change of scenery and getting away from the snow and doing all those things really helped at a time when I felt it through just texting and calling you that you probably needed a little bit of a break. And hey, we had some pretty nice beaches in the Bahamas, and so we did a lot of sand work, and I just remember spending as much time as I could away from the work that I had to do. I came over to the house, we did some stuff with a ball, I came to the hostel, we went out on the beach and just did a bunch of stuff. And what a cool rehab. That's probably my favorite rehab story of all time, just so you're aware.
Vacation rehab. Actually, a lot of people, everyone at the hostel saw me with the boot and they're like, oh, you got injured on your before your vacation? And I was like, no, this injury is the reason I'm on vacation. So
there you go. Lemonade from Lemons once again. A perfect story, a perfect rehab. And that one went well. And another injury for a wrestler that can be, career ending, right? And Dr. Desai purposely did a surgical technique because he knew you were a wrestler. And we talked about that a little bit, but why is, for anybody who's not familiar, why is that area so tricky for you as a wrestler?
So as a wrestler, I'm constantly driving. Like my feet are always digging in the mat and pushing into the other person. And that is like exactly what that joint with the avulsion fracture that I had. As soon as you get in that position like this and you're pushing off, then that joint space widens because it's not connected properly. So it was essential to have that strong and solid if I want to be able to do what I do every single day. I guess that's why Dr. Desai went for the fancy surgery and gave me that tightrope thing there that stays
Yeah.
in the foot permanently.
Yeah, and we talked about that, and there was some good articles and stuff like that in terms of, that he brought up when he was on. So it's kind of cool to connect the dots back to what we had talked about with him. And then here you are. It was your foot that we were talking about, and it's recovered. It's recovered nicely. You've gone back to wrestling since. You've done very well. You finished third, right, in qualifiers for Tokyo.
Yeah, in the Canadian Olympic qualifiers. And I think 6 months after I had the surgery, I had an international competition in Italy. So that was pretty impressive. Six months after, and I was at full level competition. I came third at this international ranking series. To be honest though, I still did feel a little rusty. Like I had pain from time to time, but it was just getting my foot used to this serious burst of power.
Mm-hmm.
But it now a year later, people ask me about my foot and I forget that I had surgery, to be honest. Wow. I don't feel any pain at all.
I don't think that's common from that surgery, just for everybody else who's listening. This is an Alex Town special. She recovers very well. The inflammatory response is not massive in you, and not limiting in you in terms of your rehab, hardly ever in anything that we saw. And maybe like that jumping up and down in the water a little bit earlier than you were supposed to because you got bit by a shark, that might have helped. Just kind of
running out of the water. Yeah.
Running out of the water. Get away from the shark. All right. It was a shark sucker, I think is what it was called. I think we did.
Yeah. It latches onto the sharks.
Yeah.
But it was aggressive.
Yeah.
It was following.
And it thought you were a shark, which is perfect. It's like a perfect analysis. I think just a killer on the mat,
It smelt my killer instinct.
Yeah, that's it. Blood in the water, something like this. So, but what a cool rehab and a cool story, and for you to share, share some downtimes, but also share in your successes on the mat. Amazing to have you on. If anybody has anything for Alex, we're getting close to, we're beyond an hour. So if anybody has some questions for Alex, just feel free to unmute or just type in into the chat, and I'll filter them over to her in terms of rehab. I just had a friend. I got a little chirp for my background here. Since we've moved back to Toronto, my background hasn't been quite as impressive as it was in the Bahamas. So this is a bunch of stacked up boxes. But hey, again, I'll bring it back around. Listen, this by Wednesday, by session 23, this stuff will be gone. It's going to be on shelves. So this is just my vow to everybody that's here. If you come back on Wednesday, it'll be gone. Yeah.
Are you going to paint palm trees on it? You feel like you're home.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm home here. I just want to get back outside off the porch. So that's kind of the next thing. We read this was the thing. Yeah, we read 15 books in the last 2 days. I read 15 80-page books with my son, because there's a series called Dragon Masters, and each one has a new dragon. If you haven't read these are great, like way better than Tiger King. I can guarantee it without ever seeing Tiger King. And we just crushed these books, and so now I think he's the lightning dragon, I'm the thunder dragon, and we're all dragons running around the house right now. So that's kind of a thing. And you might be awake trying to read them over again, but those were kind of it. So Denise wrote in, do you do any specific mental training? And if so, what can you share that you do?
Yeah. My wrestling coach, that's something that he really pushes me towards and encourages me to work on. So I do a lot of mindset training. I guess one of the most important things I can share what I do is I think about times where I've wrestled and I was really happy with the way that I wrestled. I felt like I was performing well. I was very comfortable. And he has me write down the list of how I felt in that moment. I was relaxed, or maybe I was very alert. I'll write down all the things that were going on in my head leading up to and in the moment where I wrestled very well. And then I'll think of a match that I had that was not very good. I didn't perform well. And I'll think of that moment leading up to it, and in the moment, like what was going on in my head. So I can really hone in on what my optimal mindset is. So I have all of my good matches, and I can focus, like I can basically study what my mindset was leading up to that moment, so that I know what state I need to get into in order to have a good performance. So I do a lot of that. It also applies to my practices, like I had to be really, really in tune with how I'm feeling during practice and how much I can push myself. And so that's a little bit of the mental training that I do.
Yeah, I love hearing about this, and it's become a little bit more mainstream to hear athletes and the Michael Jordan saga and like what they were doing in terms of mental training as with that team through Netflix again. But like hearing these stories, Nate just pointed out, it's awesome to hear these stories, the intensity and flow state firsthand, and like how impressive it is. The mental side of things is massive, and like being able to center yourself while being pinned. Not everybody can do that, and that definitely takes some work outside of the mat, and that definitely doesn't happen just by chance while you're on the mat. Journaling like you said, you were writing down flow state, is that a thing that helps you? I found that's really helped me as a practitioner too.
Yeah, I didn't used to journal, but over the past year or two, I guess the past 2 years, I've gotten into journaling, and I journal all of my thoughts, and I'll just get everything out on the paper leading up to tournaments. I do debriefs with myself after tournaments, and it's really cool to be able to go back to like a big tournament that I had years ago and remember that moment. But it's a big part for sure. I also see a mental coach as well. I do a lot of work with her where you like really dig in the nitty gritty stuff.
Yeah, that's
it's very emotionally draining, but the amount, man, the return that you get from putting work into your mental component, it's huge. It's so valuable. So
yeah, we're gonna touch on this in well, we've talked about some stuff that we're gonna do in July, and there's gonna be some big parts of that we're gonna ask for your help with some other athletes too in July with the thing that we've talked about that's top secret. But as a world-class athlete with knowledge in the human body yourself, what are the characteristics you value in ATs and strength and conditioning specialists that you've worked with?
Oh man. Well, as you know, I ask a lot of questions because I really want to understand what's going on. So any therapist that I have, I respect them more, and I like working with them when they're willing to stop and like really think about like the mechanics of the injury, or like what exactly is it that we're trying to accomplish right now. Whether somebody's like manually working on me, or if they're taping me up. And so when they can sit down with me and if they haven't thought about it too much, I really value when they're able to stop and like work through it in their head and explain it to me so that I understand exactly what we're doing, why we're doing it, what we can do to help prevent it. And I guess the same thing goes with like strength and conditioning. If a coach can explain to me exactly why we're doing this and what is the benefit, what are we looking for in this exercise, then it makes sense to me and I see a reason to do it. So,
yeah. Great answer, and the insight from a top level athlete, it holds a lot of weight. So really appreciate the honesty and being able to answer this in front of our audience and for those coming in. And then the next question there was, what does your medical team consist of? Either, I think that's probably with regard to Wrestling Canada.
So Wrestling Canada, our athletes are all spread out in different training locations. So when we travel, we have a medical team that Wrestling Canada gathers with a massage therapist. It's always a little bit of a different group of people, but sometimes it's a physio, a massage, an athletic therapist, or somebody who has an AT and also an osteopath. My specific team, my regular team that I go to for treatment, I see. So anytime I'm dealing with an injury, I work with an athletic therapist, and he's also a strength and conditioning coach. I see a massage therapist on a regular basis. My dad's a chiropractor, so I get chiro from my dad whenever I want. And then I have my mental, my mental coach. So that's the main.
A nice, well-rounded team with a bunch of people. And do they, or do you make an effort to have them connect with one another so they're all aware of what's going on, or is that not possible?
So my So my massage therapist and then the AT that I work with, they're both out of the same medical clinic, Sports Medical. So they are always in communication with each other, which is fantastic. That's exactly what I want. I guess that's about it. My mental coach doesn't really communicate with my like physical therapists, but also I take it upon myself to be the person that's bringing information from one to the other, but I'm able to do that because I understand what it, like maybe your average person doesn't really understand what they're working on with the therapist, so they can't explain to it to their other therapist. But I'm always like clearly conscious of what it is that I've got going on with my body. So, for example, when I have my personal therapy team and I've got something that I'm working on, and then I go to an event with Wrestling Canada where it's their team that they have together, I have to bring my information that I discuss with my therapist. I have to bring it to them so they understand my history.
Yeah, that's great insight for those of us that aren't, there on a regular basis with a national and international level, high level competitor. And then, I think what stands out for you, along with, the upper end athlete, one of the characteristics that stands out is your willingness and your ability to take it on yourself as well and hold yourself accountable to understand what's going on and to put in that effort, because sometimes it's hard to work with athletes who aren't willing to do that, and it shows in our reaction as practitioners, it shows in the gym, and it shows across the board. But to have somebody who goes above and beyond, it's really, really easy to work with an athlete that does the same thing and challenges us to do the same. And your drive to be the best that you can be, you know that starts with you first, right? And so you have to know yourself better than anybody else does.
Just makes sense to me.
That's simple. That's straightforward. For me, I'm just kind of figuring that out. But there's a lot of people out there that don't see that yet, and they lie down on the table and they're like, fix me. And there's no way I can fix you if you're not going to help yourself fix yourself, So I don't know, maybe it's t-shirts. It's the t-shirt thing again. We'll just get fix yourself stupid or something like this on your shirt. Anyway, that's probably not a good way to go for a business model, but hey, you never know. If there's any other questions for Alex, please get them in now. This has been an amazing talk. Great insight, Alex. Really appreciate your time, taking the time out, taking us inside your career, your injuries, some things that were, tough times in your life, as well as some really, really amazing times in your life, and then the combination. Kat, who's a former AT at York, wrote this question: did you ever consider getting into athletic therapy after your kin degree, or did you always want to get into coaching? Great question.
Yeah, that's a good question. And to be honest, I'm still figuring out exactly what I would like to do with my degree. Yeah, the coaching is sort of just something that happens naturally as I'm training with the younger athletes. But I can definitely see myself doing something more hands-on. I still don't know yet. I've considered it. I have considered it, but we're still figuring it out. I don't know.
That's all right. Well, if there's anybody that wants to help Alex out and become her training partner, she needs to start throwing humans around pretty soon. So if anybody's up for that, maybe message her afterwards and let her know. Or if you can design a sumo suit or something along those lines for this.
I feel like you just need this contained, right? And then as long as you wash your hands and stuff, you don't spread it through your mouth, then I don't. Yeah. So it's like a spacesuit helmet?
Yeah, spacesuit helmets. I don't know. It might work. If everybody just walks around in spacesuit helmets from now on, we can just, maybe this is the actual move to the moon that's going to happen, but it's on Earth and everybody's just wearing spacesuits.
Well, there's no COVID on the moon.
Right?
So.
Not that we know of at this point. I don't know. We could talk about that for a few hours probably too. But getting back to this and you taking the time out, we really appreciate it as a profession. I really appreciate staying connected with you through your career. We lose touch on occasion, and then reconnect. Next time will not be on an injury, but we'll be in an uplifting, a different realm that we work together where you're not injured and recovering, but still getting better and helping us get better as a profession too. So really appreciate you taking the time out. Congratulations on the new move, the new wheels, the medals, all the competition, the winning, the life. You're an inspiration to all of us. While I was at York, to me, continually, I look at all the things you've done and do, and your personality and your drive, and I really thank you for that. You've inspired a lot in me too. So I wanted to thank you for being here and for that on a personal note as well.
Well, thank you very much, James. This has been a pleasure. I'm always happy to connect with you, and I'm glad that you've grabbed me and said, "Hey, we're going to stay connected for the rest of our careers." So, because it's a pleasure always to work with you, and I look forward to more communications when I'm not injured.
There we go.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Thank you for putting all this together.
This has been great. Everybody else, thank you for being here. This has been Let's Chat, an Athletic Therapy Roundtable session 22. I will hit stop on the recording here shortly. And if anybody's willing to stick around for a few more minutes, please do so. This will be archived. The quiz is there. And Alex, thank you again. Everybody else, thank you for being here. Good night. Be safe. And we'll talk soon.
Right.
Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Check us out online, firststartherapy.com. That's FIRSTAR therapy.com. Or email us with feedback, consult@firststartherapy.com. CONSULT@firststartherapy.com. On Instagram @firststar.therapy, and our podcast host @letschat.at. This is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast.